Uncertainty is shrouding families of children with special educational needs who are reportedly facing losing the legal right to extra support in schools under rumoured proposals being considered by the government.
So it's being reported that plans by ministers to overhaul education, health and care plans, known commonly as EHCPs, could see some children losing eligibility for extra help.
Yeah, according to the Times newspaper, there are currently 570,000 children with an ECHP. That used to be called a statement. Of those, 185,000 are in special school, and the total cost to the taxpayer is thought to be £11 billion. It's estimated funding for special needs education will grow by another £2 billion in the next 2 years. And we're joined now by vocal coach and singer Carrie Grant, who you'll know from shows like Fame Academy and Pop Idol. Carrie's also the mum of 4 children, all of whom have special educational needs. And we're also joined in the studio by Hayley from Let Us Learn Too. It's a campaign group. She's a mum of 2 children who also require special support.
Yeah, and it's interesting because between you, you have sort of children who are still in primary school, I think, Hayley, and you have adult children now who have been through the schooling system who just didn't get this kind of legal help.
2 of whom are still in school.
2 of whom are still in school.
One's not in school and hasn't been for 3 years, but should be in school.
So just fill us in, essentially, on what might be the basics for people who don't know about what it means to have children with special educational needs.
Well, the problem that we have is that when children go to school, school is set up for neurotypical kids. And so, therefore, there's an immediate need, whether you like it or not. So the idea that if we take away a plan that helps these children interact, integrate, feel like they're part of school and feel like they belong, if we're going to remove that, then what is being done in school to help our children who have difficulties accessing the curriculum, have difficulties socially, have difficulties perhaps with the environment of school? There's so many layers there are to this.
Just because what the government are effectively saying is that what they want to do is divert some of the money to cases where you have kids with really extreme educational need. But the point, or this is what's rumoured, but when it comes to things like ADHD, where you get, for example, a teaching assistant in school and that sort of thing, they want to refund it and put that or help that arrive in a different way. That's what's being suggested. What would the impact be if that happened?
Huge. I know, so my son is at primary school right now with a TA. It is his life support. Without it, he would not be able to go to school. Before we got his plan, he was screaming, and I'm actually saying physically screaming going into school every day. I was having to forcibly get him into that classroom. As soon as he got the TA and the support, all that stopped overnight almost. And he's now gone from being behind in years academically to being in front. He's thriving.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, full disclosure, I've assisted a number of families in cases like this. It is incredibly difficult. Just help us understand, what happens. You might, for example, think everyone, as a mum, hopes that kid is going to do OK and be OK in school. Dads too. And it looks like there's a problem in early development. Now, at that point, a teacher might say, perhaps you've got a special educational need. At that point, how challenging is it to get the help that that child might need?
It doesn't stop right from the beginning and it continues. So for my eldest son, Matthew, he was very clearly disabled. He needed physiotherapy to walk. He had 7 different professionals all saying he was going to need not only an assessment, but also additional help in school. It probably needs a specialist school. And the local authority turned around and said, we're not even assessing you. His needs are predictable, not exceptional. I don't know why it's predictable that a child can't pick up a pencil. Well,
that's the point. You get your statement. For that, you have to get an expert. There's a huge waiting list. That can take years. Once that arrives, the local authority have a legal obligation to provide the type of assistance that's going to support that child and hopefully mean that they're going to have a normal educational journey and be productive for all of us. One of the things that they're suggesting here is that the local authority who govern all of this stuff will stop people like you having the right to appeal their decisions. What impact would that have?
Over £100 million was spent last year taking parents to tribunals, of which over 95% were won by parents. It just kicks the can down the road, which means your child is in school without that help. And what happens is we then gaslight parents, say, why is your child not in school? My child is not in school because they're refusing to go to school because school doesn't meet their needs. So you end up with more mental health issues. Only 30% of children are accessing mental health services for children. You end up with self-harm, you end up with suicidal ideation, you end up with violence on parents and
also,
teachers.
this isn't just theory for you. These are the actual things that your children have experienced.
This is not just lived experience. For my family, the 300 families that I've worked with for the last 15 years, they are all telling the same story.
And the remarkable thing is, as you say, is that even though it's a legal document, you still have a fight on your hands once you get it.
You still have a fight on your hands because, you know, only 30% of teachers get any continual professional development in SEND. Only 30%. So if you take away that EHCP, how are teachers going to cope?
Well,
we're going to start gaslighting teachers then.
Yeah, it's clearly the thing is that when there is uncertainty, it does make hyper-vigilant parents who are already on edge trying to make sure that their children are OK. It makes you into a slight stage of freefall because you think, well, what if, and that will keep you awake at night. What is being said, according to reports, is that the government strategic advisor on special educational needs and disability, SEND, Dame Christine Lenihan, told Schools Week that this current framework, the EHCP framework that you're talking about, is at the moment not fit for purpose and it is likely to be overhauled. But the idea is that there's going to be extra funding to mainstream schools. Particularly, you're both look sceptical at the point of it. But the idea that is being mooted is that there will be extra money. For example, 78,000 children with these certificates, it's actually due to speech and language issues, right? So they're saying that actually...
Never just speech and language,
but as in there are 78,000 children who need speech and language help at primary school age. And so the idea is that the government, would give special provision to schools to provide that already in schools, so you don't need an outside person. So the idea of training people who are already there to help those children...
I hate these ideas. I hate this idea. They put, like, let's put a therapist in every single school. So you have one therapist for 3,000 children in a secondary school. Like, it's just a headline. It's not really... It doesn't really deal with the root of the issue.
Come back to early learning. One of the things, there'll be people out there, right? You know who they are. You've probably spoken to them that roll their eyes and shrug their shoulders, right? When you say, oh, my child has ADHD, for example. That's not a real diagnosis. As if getting a SEND diagnosis, getting a statement, which is what we're talking about, people understand it in that way, is an easy thing to do. That's just to be clear, so people understand that's not what we are talking about.
Yeah.
These are kids that need, for example, one-on-one help so they can get through the day, and the rumour is that those who are not in special school, that sort of help might be taken away. Now, what is the difference for a kid if he or she loses that assistance? Let's say they get it at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. What's the impact for all of us and for that young learner's educational journey?
So the difference is between going to school or not going to school. Simple as that.
And you've got Connor and Matthew.
I have, yeah.
8 and 10.
That's right, yes. So Connor will not be able to attend school if he doesn't have the support he's getting. There is just no way. And the long term, that means we're losing a very capable child who could learn and do really well, but with support. We can't just let these kids go in there with nothing. It won't help anybody.
And you know what is, my son's in secondary school, what is absolutely of value to everybody in a school community is that the year leader and those people who are there to look after all the children aren't constantly having to look after a handful of children who are disruptive because they can't cope.
Yep.
Because then the other children who are neurotypical also might need other help. Right. But actually what happens is that the head of year, whoever that might be, the pastoral head, is so caught up with having to look after the children who don't have specialist care. And actually it frees up staff to think more broadly about the needs of, you know, vaping in schools and all the other things that go on in schools, bullying and all the other things that happen. But actually, I would imagine that for teachers, and you must speak to teachers all the time, that they too must be worried about what will happen to their ability to teach in a classroom if they're that one child who needs help, who for no fault of their own is being disruptive because ultimately it is a disruption in the class. They can't teach the rest of the class anyway.
Of course they can't.
No. And
so it's detrimental to everybody in the school environment.
It's detrimental to everyone. Until we have a complete overhaul of the education system, none of this will work.
Just very, very quickly, because we've got Catherine McKinnell on, Minister for School Standards. This is now just a rumour, to be clear. It looks like there is some chance, they haven't denied it, that this sort of help might be taken away. What is your message to her? What would you like to say to her if you could?
overhaul the system, stop gaslighting parents and taking the lowest, weakest link out and just attacking us. It needs to be collaboration between local authorities, teachers, health education, social care and parents and kids.
And do not remove EHCPs from mainstream schools. The effects will be catastrophic.
They'd be catastrophic.
Yes.
Right. Hayley, Carrie, thank you so much. We have a statement, although we do actually have the government on in a moment. The Department for Education says the government was working with families and experts on solutions, including early intervention to prevent needs from escalating. They maintain that children with SEND and their families will not lose out on support and say the support will be protected and continue as well. If not, it will actually be better.
Yeah.